welcome to the Save Continue podcast, where we get together and talk about video games and video game related stuff. As always, I'm Shanae Howard. With me are Tommy Shelby.
Thank you. Hello.
And Ryan Robinson.
Grand rising and salutations.
I regret introducing you.
I feel like that's the case most weeks.
I just wanted to try a little new thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know how we feel about it. We gave you feedback. And feedback is priceless.
That's true.
So has anything super nice happened since last time we talked?
Super nice?
Yeah, or exciting, or just like, I don't know, something positive, or unless something terrible happened, you want to talk about that, but like, I'm on a good vibe right now, so I want to hear about good things.
I mean, nothing really as far as like life goes, you know. My kids went back to school. I guess that's cool. But like, other than that, it's the same as always, you know.
The same as ever was.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Did you play any new games?
Yeah.
You don't do it in detail. Just, you can name them if you want.
We're going to go into some deep detail here, okay?
Nice
so,
and deep. Make some deep penetration.
I just feel like there's been a lot of good indie games the past couple of weeks here. So I picked up Froggun, which is really cool. I expected to like it, but not as much as I do. It's like a PS1 throwback game, but I can't really compare it to any specific game. Like, visually, it kind of looks like Mega Man Legends. But, like, from a gameplay standpoint, it does a very specific thing that I like, where, like, there's one mechanic that does many different things, you know? Like in Downwell, you know, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Been playing Cult of the Lamb, and I really like it a lot. My biggest issue with it is how buggy it is, and the fact that it seems like they knew it was that buggy when they released it. But it is a fantastic game. I'm really enjoying it. And then today I finished up Rollerdrome, which I knew from the footage that I would like it. I'm really bad at it, you know?
That's
like I beat the game, but like
actually like me bad at it, or you bad at it for you?
I mean, I can live, you know, but like it's a high score chaser, and that's like the only replay value is chasing a high score, you know. And my scores are miserable.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Do you feel the drive to improve?
I'm playing the new Game Plus. No, not really. I might go through. It's got like Tony Hawk style level like missions to do, you know. So I'll probably go through and do all of those, and I'm doing the new Game Plus. But like, you know, I assume naturally over time I'll get better at it, but I don't think like I'm going to be chasing high scores for it. But that said, it is a very fun game.
Anything nice happened to you since we last talked, or any new games?
Yeah, actually, a nice thing did happen. So, the nice thing was that our friend Jimmy's album came out last week.
Hey, I didn't realize he was putting one out.
Yeah, he'd been working on it for like 2.5 years, I think. And it finally came out.
On socials, so,
yeah. That's you know the only place he talks about it. But like, yeah, he finally finished it and he put it out on Bandcamp, and I bought myself a copy, and it's pretty good. So I'm really happy for him. He's been getting a lot of positive feedback about it, so it's been really cool. As for games that I've been playing, I've just been playing a few. So
I've been playing new ones.
Yes, these are new. These are all new, never before seen or played by Ryan, I should say. Okay.
Oh, I do want to say Ryan and I played a bunch of fighting games.
That was so fun. Shanae, listen to me. We played. I think
locally.
Yeah,
for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, we sat next to each other and played some fighting games. Got our sticks out. We got our sticks out. Sat next to each other with our sticks out, and we played. What did we play? Like 4 games, Tom? Maybe?
I don't know. Several.
We played several fighting games. Of all those fighting games, I won 2 rounds. I won 2 rounds, Shanae, but I had a great
Better than
time.
0.
Yeah.
Better than 1.
They're not games you're familiar with, though.
Yeah.
You know.
There was one game we played. What was it? Pocket Fighter, right?
Yeah, Pocket Fighter.
Yeah, we played Pocket Fighter, which is a game that I became familiar with, I believe, in middle school, but I never got the chance to play it.
We played Pocket Fighter with our sticks out.
Yeah, with our sticks out.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll take it to play it.
Yeah, we're reading really hard on our sticks, and
Yeah.
but it was like I don't think it's a game that I think that I would put a lot of time into, but I think a lot of it was cool to find like a game that I had learned about almost 30 years ago. It was cool to like finally actually get to play it, so that was neat.
Very charming game.
Yeah. But for games that I played on my own, so I've been kind of on like a kind of like on specifically a post-apocalyptic city management game kick lately, and I've been playing this game called End Zone.
I haven't played that before.
No, I'd never.
You played it?
You played it?
Oh no.
Or you thought I played it? Because I've never played it before recently.
When Ryan told me about it, I assumed it was a football game he was playing.
Yeah, there is
That makes sense.
There's so far no football that I can surmise, but it's a really.
You should leave a review.
Sure.
Not
I've
about
been
football.
Googled.
Yeah, no touchdown, 0 out of 10. But no, it's a cool game. It's got a lot of systems that kind of interact with each other in like a really interesting way, and it's a really good looking game too. And these are the kind of games that I kind of find myself getting overwhelmed with kind of quickly, just because like the way my brain works is I kind of focus on one thing specifically, like ignoring everything around that thing. So like everything else is falling apart, but I have this one aspect of my city going well. So like that's what I'm focused on. But it's a cool game nonetheless, and I'm glad that I got to try it. Rumbleverse came out, so I've been playing that. Just a quick summary of it: it's a battle royale with wrestling moves instead of guns, and it's been a fun time. I won one match playing with my wife. We played duos and we won a match, so that was pretty cool. Second to last, I played a game that I've been wanting to play for a while, Shakedown Hawaii. Very fun. It's just like basically it is a 16-bit inspired like kind of crime game that like it's a lot like those old GTA games like GTA 1 and 2, like a top-down kind of isometric perspective.
It's the same studio that did Retro City Rampage, right?
I think so. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's like the fucking story's just fucking bonkers, and I tried to explain it to my wife the other night, and I was like, I realized like halfway through the explanation that like nothing I was saying made sense, so I kind of gave up. But it's really fun. And lastly, I've been playing Saints Row because that came out a couple of days ago.
Ooh, how you liking that one?
I love it. I love that game. I'm having so much fun, and I can't wait to play more. I think about that game a lot. I think about how much I want to play it. I made the closest facsimile to my wife that I could as the main character. She also made me. She was but she and I have been playing a lot of it, and like we're both really enjoying it. Hopefully there's like a couple of things that like I kind of wish that they put in the game, but other than that, I've been having a blast with it, so I'm looking forward to putting more time into it.
Yeah. Having not played the game, and I was actually looking forward to it, I'm probably going to wait for a pretty heavy sale or at least several patches.
So there have been some bugs that I ran into for sure. And as a matter of fact, just before we started recording, I was playing it, and I got into a car, and instead of sitting down in the seat, I was standing up through the roof, and it let me drive for a little bit, and then it stopped. That being said, in my experience, my personal experience, bugs of that nature have been few and far between so far. So
That's good.
overall, the game was a lot of fun. I'm I'm glad that I'm finally getting to play it. And that's basically it. That's it for Ryan's games.
I don't know what happened. I lost you, Ryan. I can't see you, but I can.
You're sideways now.
Yeah, you're sideways now, which
Yeah.
is a neat dynamic. You
Yeah.
know?
I'm gonna.
Yeah, no.
I'll look at you like this.
Yeah, sorry about that. My dad called me, which he like never does.
Sure.
Shanae, you want to hang up and then rejoin?
Yeah, hang up
Yeah, I'll
and
do
join.
that.
Her papa never calls her Tom.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Unprofessional.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I ignore my calls from my mom during the show.
Sure.
I don't take calls.
Yeah.
But
I hope she's still sideways.
or upside down.
Yeah. Oh. Ryan,
Huh?
what are your thoughts on Rollerdrome and Cult of the Lamb?
So, I don't know if you've been doing it like me, where as you're playing Rollerdrome, you kind of like involuntarily went into it with very much a Tony Hawk mentality, and like you've been approaching like doing tricks that way, and like in Tony Hawk, for every trick you do, adds a multiplier to your combo, right? So I've been trying to wrap my mind around the idea that the multiplier is only increased by getting kills and trying to interlace those kills with the tricks, and it's been difficult for me. Like I have
also like hitting projectiles will add to your score and those combo tokens and all that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing I'm still sideways.
You are still.
Yeah,
sideways.
you are.
All right.
Oh, there,
well,
no.
I'm just
There we go. Now she's
I'm
vertical
trying to
again.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do vertical video.
Yeah. A vert vid. That's what they call them in the biz.
I'm now a YouTube short.
Sure.
And Cult of the Lamb? Well, okay, Rollerdrome. You gonna keep on with it, or are you kind of off of it?
I like it. I like it a lot, honestly. I like the vibe of it, and I'm really interested to find out more of like the story and like what's going on there. And the music I think is fantastic. It's just amazing music. So I think I'm gonna put more time into it. It's just like there's like so much came out in a short period of time that it kind of went on the back burner.
I'll say this: you can beat it in an hour.
Can I? Because let me tell you something, Tom. I got stuck on the same level for an hour because I kept dying. So maybe not.
Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I think you forget that not everybody is as good at video games as you.
No, but like the par on the levels is like 3 minutes, and like I'm taking like 8 minutes to do them, but like
it just,
still
sometimes like see again it's that same problem that I have, right, where I become like laser focused on the one thing. And like I'm ignoring other things. Like I'm laser focused on doing these tricks, and I'm ignoring the bullets and missiles coming at me. So,
you definitely have to multitask. Like it's pretty crazy.
It's like you have the opposite of ADHD.
Hey, have you seen Rollerdrome?
No, I haven't.
So like everyone's describing it as Tony Hawk with guns, right? You're in these combat arenas, and it's roller skates, but you're doing very Tony Hawk style tricks to reload your weapons to then take out these enemies.
Yeah.
So you're doing like flips and shit through the air while you're trying to like sniper people across the arena.
Yeah.
So it can be a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, no, that sounds like too much hand-eye coordination.
Well, it's got the whole Max Payne slowdown thing, so that makes it pretty easy.
I didn't play Max Payne, but I'm assuming it's probably similar but slightly different than the Wanted video game slowdown.
I mean, after Max Payne, bullet time is bullet time, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
So you probably have the general idea of like what we're talking about. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like that game is like I can usually be pretty good with like having to do multiple things at once in a game, but something about Rollerdrome is just like I'm having a hard time like wrapping my mind around a lot of it. So, but I like it, but it's tough. So
I have a couple of good things this week.
Let's hear it.
So one, or since last talk, actually, we dog sat my in-laws' dog, So it was nice seeing the two dogs hang out, and that always made me smile because they were real cute, and they would get jealous of each other.
Sure.
And
Wasn't Two Dog a character in Days Gone?
Two Dog?
Yeah,
I didn't
Two
play
Dog.
Days Gone, so I could not confirm or deny.
Yeah.
But then also I had a moment where I was really proud of myself when I was playing Halo with my friend Sean. The guy had the sword, and he was like getting launched and like coming down to try and hit me. I fucking hit him in the air and killed him. It was awesome.
Hell yeah, brother.
Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
And Sean got to see it, and he was like, "Oh wow, that was like really awesome." I was like, thanks.
Did you
I was
capture the
shocked.
moment?
Yeah.
No,
Oh.
I mean, no. I'm sorry. I didn't do that. I have the thing I'm proud of. You don't need to like make me sad about it.
Sure.
I
get
I
that.
captured it in my heart.
Yeah.
I just need to see it, or I'm not going to believe you. You know.
Yeah, Tom needs the beautiful bean footage.
I have a witness. I have a witness.
I'm just fucking around. I believe you played Halo.
I did very cool things, but nobody saw those, so they don't count.
Sure.
But
That's true.
also, I was really excited for House of the Dragon, and I was not disappointed by the first episode. It looks all great, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
I have no idea what that is.
It's the new Game of Thrones universe show.
Okay, yeah.
It's about like 200 years before what happens in the Game of Thrones series.
How much boobs and blood is in it?
So you actually see a dick before you see boobs in this first episode. So
Okay, I'll take it.
equality, all that, and then
Equality.
Ryan, that's what dicks represent, okay?
Sure, we won, y'all.
I mean, normally women get like sexualized first if
That is
men are
true.
shown at all.
That is true.
So I mean, granted, in the instance you see the dick, it's not very sexual.
Okay.
Anyways, but it was still great. I'm not a huge
The
fan
dick.
of Max. the dick was mediocre as fuck.
It was still great.
It was mediocre. But
Yeah.
I am not like a huge Matt Smith fan. He kind of like he just looks like the cereal box Frankenstein guy.
Frankenberry?
Yeah, he looks like Frankenberry to me, and so that's all I really think
I
about.
don't know
Even
who
with
Matt Smith
Doctor
is.
Who. He was like a doctor. He was the one after David Tennant.
That doesn't help.
Okay, well I didn't know if it would, but yeah, he's an actor.
Okay.
He looks like Frankenberry. I don't know what else to say
I know
about him.
I know who Frankenberry is, so I'll just use
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Just imagine Frankenberry in Game of Thrones, and you got it.
That sounds pretty cool. I might have to check this show out.
But yeah, no, it was all like super great. Would highly suggest, at least like based off the first episode. And then I almost finally bought Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I was really excited about it. But like I'm also kind of nervous that it's like gonna be one of those things like what's the parachute game? Where you have parachutes and grappling hooks.
Just Cause? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like scared it's kind of like Just Cause, where like I find the majority of fun in it in the demo, and then when I actually buy it, like I'm really tired of gameplay pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's kind
I
of
could
like
totally see that with Just Cause.
uh,
Really fun to fuck around in, but you don't want to play too much of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead, I bought another Atomi game. Even though I told myself I was gonna play less of them, that has not
Yeah.
happened.
I mean, buy what
I
you
need-
like, you know?
Yeah.
I need all of the boyfriends, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to convince a couple people to play, to pick them up, like people I think that might enjoy it. So far, no one has taken any of that bait. No, but it's fine. I finally watched more of the Hogwarts Legacy gameplay, and then I saw the new trailer, but it doesn't have any gameplay in it. Didn't they also like put out a trailer for like a Dune MMO?
Yeah.
It's just a cinematic trailer, but
so
yeah.
it's- and it's made by the same. Like something about that about Funcom and like making MMOs based on books. Because I know they did
Hey.
they did a Conan one as well a while
You know what's
back.
funny about that is like a completely different studio did a Conan strategy game and is now doing a Dune strategy game.
Wow, something about those
Yeah.
books, I guess. I don't know.
Uh,
Like that was
or,
announced at the Game Awards.
or, or the people who buy the IP for those things, or own the IP for it. Maybe that like the studios are known for making those well.
Yeah.
Because like, just to bring back to Game of Thrones a little bit. I mean, part of the issue with like the lack of quality in the later seasons is because George R. R. Martin wasn't involved as much, but also like D&D as far as like writers of shows and movies, they really excel at taking like written work and changing it to like different media. So not so much creating their own stuff. So I mean, those studios are known for like making like solid like strategy
Patience.
or like MMO games based off written work. It makes sense why they would go to the same one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know enough about the studios or who owns the IP, so I'm probably just talking out of my ass. But yeah, no, but I mean, the Dune books, I read quite a few of them, and the world is really expansive, and no like TV show or movie can really do it justice because a lot of it's internal monologue. So I'm pretty excited to like whenever that does come out to play in the Dune world.
Both of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
People seem to like those movies. I've never seen them.
I mean, I'm not like a huge fan of the Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya one, but it's, I mean, it's pretty. So it's got that.
Yeah.
This week, though, Ryan, you said that you wanted to talk about what we define as a next-gen console game.
Well, more specifically, something that I have become accustomed to over the last, I want to say, 15 or 16 years is whenever new hardware comes out, people are looking to define what to them is a next gen experience, right? And the first time I remember hearing that term was back in 2006 when Gears of War came out, and ever since then, whenever new hardware comes out, I look at discourse about people trying to define or like explain like what to them is a next gen experience, and like what defines like the moment where we have actually come into what is now the current generation. And so I was kind of interested in how you guys define that, or like what does that look like to you, especially now in a time where like, because I feel like a lot of the time when we look at this sort of thing, a big part of it is what do these games look like, right? A lot of the time it's like the next generation is defined by like, look how great these games look how round the wheels are, look how wet the puddles are and stuff like that. But I feel like the leap from generation to generation is continuing to get smaller. So I feel like how we quantify that might fall into different aspects of what a video game is. So I guess I was just wondering like how you guys quantify that for yourselves.
First, I think it's like on a personal level, I think it's whatever game makes me glad I bought the console or that like this generation's happening.
Okay.
Because you have like because if you do it by like say like mechanics, like there's like the snipper clips or certain things like the Switch whenever it's launched, like that are teaching you how to use the Switch and play it. Like technically that is like a next gen console game because like you couldn't play that on the previous console.
Yeah.
Or you couldn't do it the same way. and you have those like introduction games. And like when you first texted it and talked about it, the first thing that popped in my mind was whenever the PS4 was getting announced, like all the like a lot of the electronics shops had the Killzone that was launching with it, and it was like talking about how great the graphics look, how like these new features are there. And I played it, and I was like, oh, this is like really cool and pretty because it's like in an electronic shop, so it's like a giant, nice TV. But I was like, I don't. This doesn't make me want to buy the console.
Sure.
Like I feel like, granted, it's probably also like my age and time frame, but like I remember being just super amazed with like the OG Xbox and like Halo, and be like, okay, this is the defining like thing of this generation, like, and yeah. So I guess it's just kind of like on a personal level, it's kind of like it's just like what makes me want to buy that hardware,
Okay.
or what makes me glad I bought that hardware. But if it's like, if we're thinking in like a grand scope, like what can be like defined as a next gen console game, I guess like even just the ones explaining how to use the console could be.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that like that definitely makes a lot of sense, especially like with the conversation that I think a lot around, like one of the things that I think, you know, I've said a lot and I've heard Tom say to a different degree is like when Tom first got his PlayStation 5, right? And we talked about like how no one, like at the time anyway, that, you know, he didn't feel that anybody needed to be like in a hurry to get that hardware.
Still don't.
Yeah. And so like, and that's, and again, right? Like that's one of those, that's another one of those things where it's just like that means that like there had like either that moment hasn't happened, or it is so like it happens so few and far between that it doesn't necessarily justify the investment, right?
And I think that's it. That hits the nail on the head. Like there are experiences on PlayStation 5 that you literally cannot play anywhere else, right?
Right.
PC included. That are very impressive and are very fun. I just don't feel like there's enough of them yet.
Sure. Because I think it has a lot to do with the fact that like for various reasons, right? We're playing a lot of games that are coming out on both current gen hardware and last gen hardware, and you know when developing, you know, software for two different generations of hardware, you kind of have to find a way to kind of split the difference so that they can exist in both platforms. So I guess it sometimes can be kind of hard to like really find in that way an experience that like really goes all in on what is now a current generation. Like for example, right, like with Ratchet, which is a game that, you know, is only on PS5, but it's because it is, and again, this kind of leads into how I kind of define a next generation moment, is that it finds a way, that game finds ways to leverage the hardware in ways that it wouldn't be able to on a previous generation, right?
Correct.
Like there are things that it is able to do. It is able to, the way it is able to load levels and the way that it is able to generate assets is in a way that is like literally impossible on the previous generation of hardware. And so like while it is on one hand it is a gorgeous game, but that in and of itself isn't what makes it a next generation experience, right? It's the way that it leverages the hardware to then feed you a unique experience that you can't get anywhere else.
I mean, I think visuals can be a part of that, though.
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
Gears of War could have existed on fucking original Xbox. It would have been ugly as hell, but there's nothing that game did that couldn't have been done before.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, and I've played the PS3 version of the Phantom Pain, and
right.
You know, it's not a fun experience, but it is possible, right?
Right.
And so like, yes, graphics are always going to, and visuals are always something that is worth noting, right? Because like it's no easy task to like push the boundaries of detail without encroaching too closely on like the whole uncanny valley thing, right? So it's a very, very difficult thing to attain. but like those leaps in fidelity are smaller to the are smaller and such that like I don't that doesn't figure so much to me now. And what I like when I'm thinking of like a next gen thing, like the visuals don't even come into like my like into the conversation for me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're not insignificant, but like that's not the definitive thing that like
Yeah.
helps me come to that.
I mean, I think it can be a number of things, and I do think visuals can definitely be part of that. I think a lot of people nowadays, like, it's so funny, right? When the seventh generation started, that seemed to be what people cared the most about.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because before that, we didn't have, I mean, I guess technically we had true HD with like 480i, and in some cases, I think even 720i.
Right.
But, like, actually having 1080, it was a big leap.
Sure.
And I think that, at that time, people talked more about visuals than they do now. That said, I think that they are still important.
Yeah.
Not for every experience,
Yeah.
But for a lot of them. And I think like that can be part of it. I also think like gameplay mechanics, right, to a lesser, not to a lesser extent,
but to a different.
Yeah, it can also be part of it, right? Like Sinead talking about snipper clips. Snipper clips could work on many consoles. Dating back for decades now, that game could work. But I could not sit down and play it at the kitchen table with somebody on any of those consoles,
Right.
And there's something to be said for that. One of the dumbest things that I always think about is like, you remember the original DS when you played Super Mario 64? You had that stupid little thumb strap.
Yeah.
So that you could control it like an analog stick,
Yeah.
Like, as dumb as that is, that's a little fucking piece of plastic on a lanyard, right? But like, we weren't doing that on Game Boy Advance or GBA or any of those,
Right.
Yeah. And
I
then,
think like
with the DSi, I think it was Resident Evil Revelations that came with the little extra triggers too.
Revelations was 3DS.
3DS. That's what I'm thinking of. 3DS, not DSi.
Yeah, but like, like I think stuff like that can be next gen in a way as well.
Sure.
But I typically define it as software or hardware that was not, possible on the previous generation.
Yeah.
If you want to get technical about it, right? Like next gen is literally just talking about age. It doesn't have to do anything new.
Right.
But I think that we expect it to,
Right. Yeah, and I think that when we talk about, but again, I think that when we talk about like next gen, we're definitely talking about like what we experience, right? And I think that it is inherently tied to hardware, right? But I also think that part of that is the way as the hardware evolves, it also kind of changes the way I think that we as players and these companies as developers think about video games as a whole. Like think about like what it is to like play these games, right? Like the ways that we approach video games changes and evolves. And while I think that like these ideas aren't necessarily like something that is mutually exclusive from like previous iterations of hardware or previous years of video games, I do think that being presented with new possibilities gives ideas, right? And I think that on one hand, they say that a lot of imagination is born from, restrictions, right? Like when the more restrictions we have, the more imaginative we have to be as far as making something work. But at the same time, I think that when we're presented, when the walls, when the room widens, we have more room to put in more of these ideas that might not have been able to exist before. And I think that allowing that kind of freedom as far as creativity, I think in and of itself is, next gen as well. But I've also been thinking about, and this is sort of hard for me to articulate because I've never really been able to find the words for it. But I also think about how as the years go on, and again, I don't think that these ideas are exclusive to, the current iteration of whatever box we're playing these games on. But I do think that as the time goes on, I think that there's like this is a next generation in like storytelling, right? Like stories that like people haven't been the way that people are telling stories is kind of changing and evolving, and they're giving me on one hand like I see them as like experiences that perhaps people wouldn't have thought of before because people are gaining new perspectives and getting and new ideas are making out there into like the public consciousness, which then feeds back into like the influence that we have over that people have over like the way games are created and the stories that they're telling. And again, this is also that also might be born from like my own personal ignorance because I don't have like a wide like the widest world view. So like there might be things that like have existed in other arenas that are just now making it to the stratosphere of video games where I get most of my storytelling from, right? But I do think that like the evolving way that we think about like what is the kind of story that can be told in video games, what are the kinds of themes that can happen in video games, like that evolution is really interesting too, especially when you think about like what kind of stories and themes were being explored in games like 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of games 30 years ago that I feel like had stories just as impactful as games today.
Mm-hmm.
It was just not nearly as frequent.
Sure.
You know? I don't know, man. I like narrative, like from a narrative standpoint, you know, we talk about like ludonarrative harmony,
Mm-hmm.
I think is important for, it's not a necessity by any means, but like certainly important for the medium. But like when you're trying to be a narrative driven game, for me it's like, okay, well, why is this a video game then?
Right.
You know,
right.
What does that medium do to justify being the, you know, canvas for this story?
Sure.
And I feel like very frequently the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
But you know, I do think that there's definitely exceptions to that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. These are two examples that popped into my head as you were saying that. Do you think that there's something added to games like Edith Finch or Her Story? Do you think that those benefited from being video games, or do you think those could have just been passive experience, like in the form of like short films or something?
Like Edith Finch could have been a short story,
yeah,
but it wouldn't have been as impactful. Something like Her Story, I think, like justifies the medium for sure.
Okay,
you know, same thing with something like Deathloop, right? Like, or not Deathloop. Well, I mean, yeah, even Deathloop, but you know, Deathloop or like Returnal, I feel like the gameplay, you know, does so much for those narratives, and it's funny because like that's where we see like, and I wouldn't call Deathloop a roguelike or anything like that, but like that's where we see like the genres starting to influence narrative, right? Because roguelites, yes, they've been around since for fucking ever.
Yeah.
But they haven't really been that popular until maybe the last 10 years.
Sure.
You know? And it used to be like, we don't really need a narrative reason for this to be happening. But now you see them like all trying to give narrative reason for you to be doing
it's more
the
interesting,
shit over and over
right?
again. Right.
I think it's more interesting, like listening to like Colt talk about how he's trying to break that loop, or like listening to Celine in Returnal talk about like go through like the things that she's going through, like of trying to like overcome like whatever anomaly she's experiencing. And I'm thinking about like for more like the very popular Hades, right? Like the iterative nature of the roguelike is written into that story.
Right.
So I think it makes it more interesting to like acknowledge that and
that aspect, I definitely look at that as something more next gen, even though games like Rogue Legacy were doing it last generation, right?
Yeah.
You know, Rogue wasn't doing that shit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think though next gen necessarily needs to denote just like a like video game that's like encompassing what that like means to be next gen, because like I mean, I've always played computer games as well as console games. Like, I've always done that. And I remember being, like, pretty stoked that, like, with Diablo, like, coming to consoles, like as well as PC. And like
Yeah.
when I first played Diablo 1, like that wasn't like a thing like, oh, I wish I could play this on my PS2. Like
Yeah.
PS1.
or PS1.
It was
Yeah.
on PS1.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it the same game?
It was the exact
Yeah.
same game. Yeah.
Not as
Oh.
like it obviously looked slightly worse and played a little bit harder to play, but
Sure.
yeah, it was the same game.
Yeah.
I
The
don't
only
remember
one that
being on
wasn't
this one.
was Diablo 2 until recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I guess, yeah, I didn't really, with my age range, yeah, I didn't, and
Yeah.
also, we didn't have PS1 games when I worked at GameStop, so I don't, unless it was in the
Yeah.
inventory, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, well, I guess, like, for my own personal thing, I just remember being, like, kind of with each generation, like, a different thing, making it, like, the next gen, or I guess, like, kind of, like, denoting that, like, we're in this current generation cycle and, like, leaving the old one.
Yeah.
Because, like, always they've made, like, as they're switching generations, like, made games for both to, like, and then moving some, I mean, I feel like
But that
now,
wasn't really a thing until the 6th generation, right? Like, there weren't games that came out on NES and SNES. And if they did come out on both, they were completely different games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until the jump from really the 6th generation to the 7th that we started seeing that.
what generation was PS3?
PS3 is 7th gen.
Okay, so then fair. Yeah, I guess this is where our age difference is showing up. Because, yeah, like, I always remember, like, from the consoles that I played, like, there always being some games in between that
Right.
were, like, I do think it's longer now than, like, obviously PS2 to PS3 as far as that time of making games for both.
Right.
And because there's not really like exclusive games for the PS4 that aren't going to be on the PS5, but they were still making, like, up until a point, PS2 games that were not going to be on the PS3.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I feel like, all right, so, like, but as I remember, like, seeing more and more games being able to be released on console and PC simultaneously, and, like, me thinking that was super cool. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, and then whenever, I guess it was PS2, like, whenever the Rumble feature was added. Was it on PS1? I don't think it was. The
Yeah.
DualShock Rumble?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well,
It was technically the 4th controller on PS1,
Yeah.
but, like, commonly the 2nd controller on PS1.
Yeah.
yeah, but, like, I guess I just didn't really have them, or I'm misremembering because it's been so long. But, like, I just, like, when I think of Rumble, I do think of PS2. There's certain, like, features.
Dude, I think of
Or-
N64. Rumble Pack, baby.
I didn't know one.
Yeah.
So the only time I ever played it was, like, going to the dentist's office. Yeah, so, like, I don't know, as far as, like, my mind goes, when I hear the term next gen, I don't necessarily think of, like, a video game and, like, that's encapsulating what this generation can do.
Right.
I do just think of the defining feature of what, in my mind, I've stuck to that generation.
Right.
And I do think of that as well.
But-
you know,
and, like-
I think of the N64 analog stick all the time. You know, like the
Wait,
worst
I
fucking
stopped
analog,
thinking about it.
worst analog stick that we've ever had. You know, but like, fuck, that changed it so much. You know, I think about the fucking shoulder buttons on the SNES. Like that
Yeah.
changed so much. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting, Shanae, that because you did mention PC gaming, and it's just like it's so weird, right? Because like there are so many different, there are like countless configurations of PCs out there, right? And so like there are different generations of like GPU and different generations of processor and things like that, right? But it's just like it is such a more, it seems like because again by virtue of there being so many different configurations and being able to swap parts in and out, it's just like the concept of a generation is like so much more fluid in that space. Whereas here in the console space, because like we have like this set, like we have the specific set of boxes that came out between this time and this time, and then like they're just the prelude to the next boxes that are coming out, right? And it is such, and like on one hand you have people coming out and saying like, well, we're trying to get away from like generations. Like, isn't that what like Sony was saying like a while back?
No, that's what Microsoft
That's
has
what
been
Microsoft.
saying.
That's what Microsoft.
Sony
said
is like sticking hard to generations.
Yeah,
And-
Microsoft was saying that they want it to be more iterative, like cell phones.
Yeah. So like, but like, but where we think about like with PCs, right? Like, I mean, I could keep playing games on the same PC that I have, and like, granted, as time goes on, I'll have to make more and more adjustments to those settings to make those games work, but I can those games can still conceivably run, right? And so like, it's something that,
and region blocking isn't a thing too.
Yeah,
I mean it is, but you can get around that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not a thing on PlayStation either.
Yeah, it hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah, so it's like,
or Nintendo,
Yeah. Which I learned as a child because my friend gave me his Japanese fighting game that I understood none of, but I had a great time with it. But yeah, and so like I think back to like when the 360 came out, and that was, I think, the first time I ever heard of the term next gen in any context was when the 360 came out.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it has been, and granted, I'm sure that other people had been saying it like way before then, but like I'd never heard it, right? But like ever since then, it's just something that I kind of think about all the time, where like, especially like, again, I go back to the Gears of War thing, where like once Gears of War happened, then that was when many people were certain that like, okay, the next generation has arrived. This is the truly Xbox 360 experience that that this is what, as Shanae will put it, this is the moment where I am glad I bought this box, right? And like, I fast forward, like, God, it's been, how long? It's almost 20 years later, and like, the way we play these games on these current boxes, and as you pointed out, like, you still haven't found a compelling reason for someone to go out and buy this current generation of hardware. And
I'd say I have, just not enough of them.
Right. Well, I mean, there are compelling reasons, but like, I feel like when we're talking about like a $500 investment, I need more than, like, I think, well, personally, I need more than a few. I say that, but at the time I had zero reasons, but I still bought it. But you know what I mean, right? Like, I think that a lot of people, when we're talking about like, well, I need this thing to do more than one thing if I'm gonna buy it, right? And I need this thing to like do more of what this thing can't, or I need to be able to have more experiences on this hardware that I can't have on this hardware, right? Because so often, and I think this is just going to be a thing for like moving forward, like, so often, like, I haven't found an experience that I can have on this box that I can't have on the previous box. Like, again, there are outliers, right? There you have your Ratchets and what have you. Those exist, but again, they are minuscule when you compare them to the mountain of other experiences that span generations, right?
Yeah. But that said, you're talking about like PC being more modular than console. I think that will change. I think that has already changed.
Sure.
And will continue to change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had RAM expansion on N64,
Yeah.
Now we've got hard drive expansions and like fucking adding an HD DVD drive to your 360, right? Like these sound like dumb, insignificant things. These sound like dumb, insignificant things, but like, I struggle to think of a console that didn't have some sort of modular upgrade.
Right.
Right. And I think that will only increase as time goes on.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
But the people who are interested in that, I do feel like they more than likely had a PC, so like it's easier to like kind of build on that. But that's just assuming. Like, to go back though, like what you said earlier about like it's the experience, like not the story, not necessarily the graphics and stuff. I think that goes along with what I consider like the thing, and I'm not saying like as far as I see generations, like I don't necessarily see just like the game defining it, but this current gen that I don't have, but from all the things I've seen and heard, like it seems like the user experience as far as like navigation and the console itself, I think is the big driving thing. With PS3, a lot of people got it because it was like cheaper than most Blu-ray players.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the features on there that like got a lot of people to get it. And that was like one of the next gen things. Like this can also do this.
Yeah.
And I think that like if you have the money, the funds for it, and you want better quality of life when you're playing your games, like yeah, buy a new console.
Sure.
And like
That makes
that's
sense.
maybe that's like not enough for everybody, especially like not right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's something to like disregard.
I mean, I love how much faster PS5 is than PS4.
For
you
sure.
know,
I
I like
booted
that
mine
the
up
store
the other
loads
day, and it was
quicker. I like that trophies load quicker. You know,
Yeah.
but
just everything. It took so long. I had to like reproduce. I had to try and reproduce like an issue for somebody, and so I loaded up my PS4, and it was like honestly like close to 15 minutes after like trying to connect to the network, any of the updates like I've missed, and like just logging in and navigating, and I was just like, this is awful.
Yeah.
I have it hardwired with the Ethernet cable. I have great internet,
Yeah.
but this still is just the loading just to even turn it on.
Yeah.
but then like the OS, am I incorrect? I'm pretty positive the OS for the Xbox Series consoles is identical to that of the Xbox One consoles. Like I don't think they changed it at all.
I don't know.
Interesting if true.
But
I think like there are things it can do that
Yeah.
the other ones could not do, like
Absolutely,
quick
yeah.
resume, you
Yeah.
know. But like I'm pretty sure the UI is identical.
Yeah, might be.
I'm able to speak upon it, like in detail. But I mean, I've heard that like it's better, but also it's just from one person I know that owns one. So
Yeah.
anecdotally, that's a very small sample. But yeah, I don't know. I tend to not think of like next gen, but I think the first time I ever heard the phrase or thought about it was like around the same time that like blast processing was also a thing that they put on magazine ads. Like I
That was
remember
a
seeing,
long time ago, you know.
yeah, because I mean I remember like looking at the video game magazines like FYE, I think it was
Yeah.
at the mall store, and seeing those phrases being used even then. So I mean,
Yeah, but blast processing was a lie, you know.
oh yeah, no, it was just a buzzword. I mean, and technically, I mean, next gen, like video game, next gen experience.
Yeah,
is
but
not
blast
a
processing
lie, but it
implies
is
a feature,
buzzword.
Yeah.
you know.
It's not a lie, but it is a buzzword.
Yeah, blast processing implies a feature that does not exist, you know.
Yeah.
And like I think you see like a lot less of that now that it's become so easy to like, you know,
Google?
with like, yeah, because like we have access to like so like people have access to so much more information that like even someone who is not very knowledgeable about like a given subject could just be like, okay, that's false. Like,
Dude, I think all the time about when you were buying your TV at cons.
oh my god, dude, that was.
I'm like, yeah, the salesman is trying to sell Ryan this 4K TV,
Yeah.
which at the time there was very little 4K programming.
Yeah.
And the guy's talking about all the 4K programming on Netflix. So I pulled up a list of the 4 shows that Netflix had in 4K
Yeah.
at that time, you know. And
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It's much easier to dispel things like that, but you know, I think like I'm such a sucker for new video game technology, you know, that even if I know it's nothing great, I want the new thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, new shiny toy.
Yeah.
Love it.
That.
But that doesn't mean. Yeah, but I mean, like, just because you're not buying it for the next gen experience. I mean, some people are, but I do think more probably fall in your category, and also like don't want that feeling of like missing out because there is going to be experiences eventually that are that console or this generation exclusive.
FOMO is
Yeah.
fucking expensive,
Granted,
dude.
Granted, it's like a lot less because like I said many times that I'm going to buy a PS5 when Hogwarts Legacy comes out. But now that I know it's launching same day on PC, I really have no want to buy the PS5. I'm like, all right, dope. I'm gonna play this immediately, like on this thing that I already own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's also like it's funny because like that actually that's kind of the premise for like a whole other topic that I wanted to do on a later show. But like, I don't know, man. I think that like, look, you know, I would never tell anybody what to do with their money. Like, it's your life, live it how you want to live it. But you know, I think a lot about like, for my money, like what I define as, you know, these experiences that like I can't have anywhere else, and then I decide, like, you know, from there, like, what is that worth to me? Like, what is this unique, you know, experience worth to me? And is it something that like, I want to engage with? And like, you know, I think about the games that I play, and you know, none of them are like, well, not none of them, but like a lot of them aren't something that is like, you know, blowing me away, right? But
Nothing very demanding.
yeah, and you know, it's
Yeah.
that's just, you know, that's just the way things are right now. But I think that like, as time goes on, and like, especially like, I'm excited to see what the games look like, like what the games are like, I should say, a few more years, like seeing like what new ways people are able to like leverage the hardware, and like as like all these developers have learned more about the Xbox and learn more about the PlayStation, and then, you know, and seeing what they can come up with. Like, I'm really excited to see what that looks like in a few years. But like, for right now, I think that like, I'm kind of just, you know, just vibing, you know, like I gave up on the idea that like, this is like the penultimate like thing, and more like, okay, well, let's see what's coming out next and how interesting is that thing. And that's kind of as far as it goes for me.
I really want to see, and I'll probably do this research on my own, unless somebody's already made this list. But once PS4 is like sunsetted and like no longer being active, like they're putting games on that, I really want to see like the best-selling game of the first year the console's out, and the best-selling game the last year the console's out for PS1, 2, 3, and 4, and see what that like comparison is as far as like just like graphics, gameplay, what it looks like, all that.
That actually
I
would
think
be interesting to
for
look at.
Sony consoles, and sometimes Nintendo consoles, it's like that's such a long wait.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Only recently did new PS2 games stop coming out. Like within the last few years, PS2 games. You know. Yeah.
PS2 is fucking cool, man.
Shit. The last either last year or the year before, or like Just Dance was still coming out on the Wii.
Yeah.
You know.
They released like, they made a big deal about like, this is the final Just Dance coming out for the Wii.
Yeah. Xbox tends to call it a bit sooner, you know, but
I guess my parameters would have to be the last year that the console's in production.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for that, it would have to go based off hardware.
Yeah.
As far as the time frame goes, because like because it would be kind of unfair if we're still kind of the best-selling PS2 game of like the last year of it, because it's not really a good.
Right. You're counting
really
at that point. You're counting 2 countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not like a like sample size, but also like it's not like a like I don't know what the last games were, and I don't know when it stopped, but I can't imagine AAA studios continuing to make PS2 games until now and making them look fantastic.
Yeah.
So I would feel like the PS2 games that most recently came out versus like when the console stopped.
I think
production.
the last PS2 game was I believe it was a FIFA, and it looked pretty good considering it was a fucking PS2, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking at FIFA 2013 on PS2.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, not a couple years ago.
Well, I mean, but even think about like.
But I do remember.
The
like
PS4 was already out when that game came out.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
I remember at GameStop when we finally, because we had the binder that we would update all the time, we'd print out the new games people could pre-order and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember we finally took out the PS2 section and stopped printing out PS2 pages. But at the end of it, it was just like, I remember seeing it like 4 games for a couple months. and then just slowly whittle down.
Yeah.
Because I was working there during that time. Yeah, so that's fun.
Do you either of you think we'll ever see a jump as big as we did between like PlayStation and PlayStation 2 again?
I don't know. I can't imagine. I have no idea where technology is going to go from here. Like
that's what I want. I want that so badly. I think like my favorite example is Resident Evil and then Resident Evil Remake, the very next generation.
Yeah.
And how drastically different that is, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, shit, man. Like, I don't know, because I just feel like it's hard to perceive for me, I think, because like now like for like nowadays, like I see like so many like with all the movies that I watch and like the different games that I play, like like the increase in that sort of like fidelity is more subtle to me now, right? And it's like and it might be more drastic to someone else, but for me, like I'm just like think like I can recognize that this thing like this looks really good. This looks really, really good, but like it's hard for me to like quantify like how much better does it look than these other things that are like a couple years older, right?
Right.
So it's gonna be like have to be more like innovation of like controllers or how
I just mean the games because like standpoint though, because like I've had so many friends say like, well, it can't look much more realistic than it does now. But I also had friends say that about Unreal, like the first Unreal. Yeah. You know?
And that's something that we always think. Like, people, so. There was a point in time where I was playing Donkey Kong Country, the first Donkey Kong Country, and I was like, there is no way video games can look better than this fucking game. And now, like...
So, like, are we foolish to think that, you know, games can't look better?
I don't necessarily think that, because I do think that, like, we're very rapidly approaching a plateau with this sort of thing. But I do think that, like... I think that what we're going to see is the emphasis of, like, different details that perhaps weren't emphasized before, right? And I think that there's going to be more focus on that sort of thing.
Hair still looks bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think hair almost always still looks bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially, like, man, I would love, like, look, I loaded up Saints Row for the first time a couple nights ago, right? And it is wild to me that Volition has been making these games for almost 20 years. And they are still some of the worst dreadlocks I have ever seen in my life.
But I mean, just even regular, normal, straight white person hair.
Sure.
In most video games, I think still does not look normal. You know, like it still looks off.
Yeah. And like I feel like hair is like one of those things that's really difficult to get right. But at the same time, like I think the last time I was really thinking about this was when I was playing Horizon Forbidden West.
Mm.
And I was just like, I look at Aloy's hair, I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like this is not this is not a person's hair. Like this is ridiculous.
Dude, do you remember on PlayStation 1 on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Alyssa Steamer's hair?
Yeah.
How it was just like spikes out the back of her fucking head?
Well, like,
to like indicate movement, right? And then so I'm playing Pro Skater, the 1 and 2 remake, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at her hair in that game. Clearly, it looks better.
Sure.
But I'm like, this still kind of looks like a helmet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, hair
looks better. I also think that I just think eventually something is going to replace the traditional screens that we use to look at stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if what that's going to be. If it's going to be like Google Glasses or something along those lines, or like more projection stuff. But I just feel like at a certain point, it's going to be like, as far as like if we're going just for visuals, the most change I see is I agree, like the hair will eventually look like hair. but also I think the way that we actually view them will change, and then that will be exciting when that happens, and that's like introduced to video games. But not that I don't think it can look better, but I just think the way that we play video games is eventually going to change.
Yeah.
I like to think that, and I've hoped for that for so long now.
It still feels the same, kind of.
Companies for so long have been giving me 4 face buttons, 4 shoulder buttons, 2 analog sticks, and a D-pad.
It's just such a hard thing to like innovate on. I feel like, right? Because it's just like a.
No, it's not, because
it's not. It's a risky thing.
Yeah.
They've been so focused on the visuals and like the frames per seconds and like all that jazz. But like once they hit like that full plateau, I mean, I just feel like yes, it still has like the same buttons on the Switch, but at least like with the motion stuff, things were kind of changing, and I was like excited about that. But now even like the Pro controller and everything else with the Switch is the same. But I just feel like at a certain point, something's going to give, and I feel like it's going to be more of the way that we interact with video games before like a massive change in visuals.
You guys remember when Reggie Fils-Aimé showed off Wii Motion Plus for the first time and sword fought that lady on that stage?
No, I don't.
It's so fucking funny.
I guess I don't know what like. I don't know what a new controller looks like. Like I don't know.
But here's the thing, Ryan. Was like at least before there was an attempt.
Yeah.
People tried.
Sure.
You know. Whereas like now, like literally, name a controller before PS2 that isn't that. You know. Like the GameCube controller is still that. It might look a little weird, but it's still that. You know.
Yeah, I just
you could say Wii. Yeah, you know, that's about it. That's about it.
Yeah, but like
you said before PS2, not after. So.
Yeah, well, sure. Well, it's because the majority of them after are that.
Yeah.
I don't
know. Like the Wii, like I don't know. I try to visualize what a different control, not a different, but like a better controller looks like in my mind, and like I can't conceive of a better layout, but that's for minds that's for people who have a mind for that sort of thing.
But it doesn't even have to be a layout thing, though, right? Like, I don't know if either of you have played Steam Deck yet.
No.
But like those little touchpad things on there,
yeah.
Like, fuck, they should put those on a controller for like a normal console, Because, like, is it as good as a mouse? No, but it comes a lot closer to a mouse than an analog stick does,
For sure.
And, like, that's such a dumb, small thing. I don't think people are going to want to use it for first-person shooters, right?
Yeah.
But, like, for a game like The Sims or something like that, on console, you might want to. And, like, for some fucking reason over the past 10 years or so, software developers who mainly develop for console first and PC second want to put these fucking shitty menus in their games.
Why do they do that?
That act like they're using a mouse.
Why do they do that? Like every Assassin's Creed game of the last few years does that.
Right.
And I don't
or
get it.
Destiny, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, here's my thing is that like I think, especially now, I think that any game that is both on PC and console should have mouse and keyboard support for it.
Absolutely.
And what's wild to me, you guys, is that like, so on Apex Legends, you can play like it's got cross-platform support, right? What's really wild to me is, and I can't speak for Xbox, but on PlayStation there is no mouse and keyboard support for that game.
See, the sad part about that is that comes down to the publisher, not the console manufacturer.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it has anything to do with the manufacturer, but the fact.
No, I know, but I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? They already have that feature on PC. You know,
so I just don't get it because like they're gonna match you with people who are playing a mouse and keyboard, right?
Right.
And so like to not even give you the option is like absurd to me.
Right.
So
more accessible for people who like have like physical issues as well, and like a mouse and keyboard works better for them.
Yeah,
But, like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like the only game I've played with a mouse and keyboard is on a console, and I'm not including like adding that keyboard to like the PlayStation controller, but is like the PS4 when I was playing Final Fantasy Online before I had my PC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And I wanted to play with Berto, but like we had a PS4, and he had a PC. We made it work. We actually went and bought my keyboard specifically so I can play on the PS4 instead of
Right.
instead
And
of
there's games that do it, but like I think for PS4 it was less than 10.
Yeah.
Like fewer than 10 games.
So So here it is.
Yeah, the only one I know of is the Final Fantasy, and it made it a lot easier.
It works with the Sims. You can play mouse and keyboard with the Sims on consoles, but
true-
it took them forever.
I've never used it.
The true next gen controller for consoles is full mouse and keyboard support. There it is.
The support's already there, though. The developers just aren't implementing it.
I'm right, but like the whole thing is that like especially, and I'm not saying like every game needs to have it, right? This is like really more of a like a case by case thing, right? Because like not every game needs mouse and keyboard, right? But for specifically for experiences where you're gonna have people playing against other people who are on a computer, especially if we're talking about competitive games, like that should be fucking mandatory. Like I'm thinking like you don't pass console cert for that cross-platform game unless you've got mouse and keyboard support in there. That's what I think. But will it happen? Absolutely fucking not. But that's what I think.
No, they're gonna gatekeep that because that's no. But it would be.
But here's the thing, right? Think about how much money Sony or Microsoft have to gain if they put out a branded official keyboard mouse set.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, putting their name on sorts of accessories.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Sony does excluding Nintendo. Nintendo does the most like peripherals and accessories. As long as I can remember, that are first party.
Yeah.
And like. But excluding Nintendo, I definitely think like out of Sony and Microsoft, like Sony definitely has more like self-branded stuff.
But like they've got their PS5 camera, right?
Yeah.
Package that shit in with a headset, a keyboard, and a mouse, and call it the PlayStation streaming kit or whatever, you know?
Oh my god.
Like,
Tom, why are
someone
you
will buy it.
Why aren't you in marketing, dude?
Dude, we need to copyright this idea.
It just well like now he's
with all these Sony products.
Now that he said it out loud, it just seems obvious to me. Like
I mean, you can only go to Best Buy and find these pre-packaged streaming kits.
Yeah.
You know?
It just,
like,
I don't know, it just seems obvious.
Throw some fucking PlayStation symbols on there.
Especially if we're talking about like these like one of the selling points.
They already make all these. They already make like Sony keyboards.
Yeah, but like, you know, especially considering the fact that like one of the selling points of consoles for like the last 10 years is that they have streaming functionality built into them.
Yeah. Dude, they're making their own monitors now, you know, that are marketed towards streamers.
Like, what are we doing?
You know?
Right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, look, you guys are giving up money hand over fist. And I don't care how much money they make, honestly. But I just feel like when it comes to like the end user experience and making these things like more approachable and more intuitive, as opposed to like me having to like go source
Sony's like want for this generation.
Yeah, and because they do have the fucking Sony branded, like when I was looking for an external drive for our PS4s, they have Sony branded, they have PlayStation branded external hard drives, right? So like, I don't know, it's frustrating sometimes when I think about it, but
that's when next generation. Whenever they make a streamer package, that'll be next.
The next generation is streaming.
Well, see, Ryan and I talked about this years ago. I thought for sure with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles, we would see like the Twitch app improved with like maybe more themes or whatever, rather than just like the nasty plain one that it gives you. Yeah. You know, like. You don't think they could sell some fucking streaming themes on PSN? Yeah. You know? I don't know.
Especially with all the Share Factory stuff, all the stuff that like you can put in a Share Factory, like that stuff that can transition over into
Like
like a
people
live
would buy
environment.
some fucking
Oh, for
overlays on PSN, you
For
know.
sure, for fucking. But like, I think the thing about it is, you know what? Actually, no. Actually, they could, and there's not really a thing about it. Like, it's something that could happen. It's just I also wonder like, what is the number of people who are streaming directly from their console versus people who are using like some kind of pass through.
I mean, I see it every time I'm on Twitch.
Yeah.
Somebody's streaming from a fucking PS4, you know.
Yeah.
We've done it. And most of the guys in our Discord have done it at some point, you know.
It works, you know. But,
Yeah.
So.
It does the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do y'all have any closing thoughts on next gen?
No. I'm sorry.
I think
I don't.
That's fine.
I think the first true next gen experience is going to be the RoboCop video game.
Putting a lot of faith in that team there, right?
You know, I honestly don't know if I actually believe that. It's just I thought it sounded cooler in my head.
Sure.
So don't quote me on that. But I mean, or quote me on it. I don't give a shit. Like I said it.
I mean, if anybody wants to buy me Fire Emblem Three Houses so I can see if it's a next gen experience, I really appreciate it.
I assure you it is not.
I won't know until I play it.
Sure.
And I'm too scared to buy it. So if someone wants to take that plunge for me, I appreciate it. But yeah, no. Yeah, I'm excited to see where things go. I don't think it'll happen for a while because it hasn't happened for a while as far as something that is drastically different. But yeah, but doesn't mean I'm not excited to see more. And I'm a liar. I'll never buy a PS5 for Hogwarts Legacy because I can play it on PC. So I'm sorry for all the promises I made. But if you want to find us on something different than what you're currently listening to us on, we are on most podcast apps such as like iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, Google Play, Spotify. We're also on YouTube if you want to see all of my camera difficulties today. And bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.